answering for a question, we have some revenue questions that we were asking. Now, the parking usage tax, just for the record, it's not that we were looking to increase the parking usage tax. It was just, what types of questions can we put on here that can help balance the budget? And this just happens to be one of them. It would require a 218 vote, meaning that because this is a tax increase, we would require us putting a measure on the ballot to have the citizens vote on this measure. And as you can tell, there's a difference of opinion as to whether or not we should increase it at all, or to what extent we should increase it. But again, it was just this was very much a hypothetical question, and it was just one of the items we thought we should include to help folks do this exercise in terms of looking at some of the revenue items. Another one that we actually have looked at in the past is the Clean Water Initiative. Right now, the general fund does provide a subsidy to a lot of the work that is being done in terms of stormwater pollution abatement. And the question was asked whether or not we should increase the fee to make sure we're recovering the cost, and also be able to fund new projects relative to the clean water functions that we provide. There's a lot of support because it is as much of a health issue as an environmental issue. But again, this would require us having to go to the voters for approval. So it's not something that's going to be part of next year's budget, but it's something that we should be considering going forward. Now, license permits and fees don't require a regular 218 process, meaning having to go to the voters. A lot of departments control their own permits, fees, and fines. Some of them have to be approved by the council. These range from things like ambulance fees to brush clearance fees to fees for permits, planning reviews, and things of that nature. As you all know, we have been pursuing full cost recovery on a lot of the services for the last 4 years, and we'll continue to do so, so that we are recovering at the very least the cost that it does provide us to deliver those services. And then one of the favorite questions of many, the public-private partnership relative to parking structures, parking, and parking meters. This was perhaps the one question we got the most feedback on relative to just the survey tool itself. There's a lot of feedback on making cuts to the libraries. There's a lot of feedback on making cuts to recreation and park services. But it's just as far as the survey tool itself, this is what generated a lot of the attention, because many felt that you just couldn't balance the meter, the budget meter, without choosing one of these options. And they're right, we could. But that's just part of the tool, and that's actually part of very close to reality here. It's going to be very difficult, like I said, to cut our way out of this deficit without looking at some revenue options, without looking at some extraordinary measures to help us get through the next couple of years. And this happens to be one of those that we are looking into. The parking structure meter. Let's just talk about the structure. That's been going on a fast track. We're looking to have perhaps a request for proposals soon related to the parking structures. The parking meter is still being studied. The council approved funding for that study to continue. And so these are options that may not necessarily be part of the budget next year, but are going to be options that have to be considered going forward, at least for the immediate future. And so that concludes the survey responses. You'll get into, in the regional breakout groups, more into your own regional survey responses and be able to compare those against the city. I know many of you have seen this before, but for those that are new or those that, just as a refresher, I wanted to go through the process itself and where we are versus where we started. So we started back in October, November, where we issued a letter to all general managers to provide us their budget proposal that included a 10% cut and a 20% cut. And so the budgets were received by the mayor. We started reviewing them, and we're actually meeting with each and every department. We've been meeting with them the last month. In some cases, telling them to go more than 20%. In some cases, telling them, you know what, we can't ask for anything more from you. Otherwise, we'll just be devastating the service we sent that we can't live. And we're not treating every department equally. We are prioritizing based on what we feel is core services for the city. And so that discussion is going on. And today, as well as the survey, we've been receiving input from community members, from neighborhood council members. There's going to be a session again with the mayor and a smaller group of the budget representatives here. And once we have all that input, once we have all the decisions made from the mayor's perspective, we'll be submitting the mayor's proposed budget to the city council. The charted deadline for submitting that is April 20th. The mayor has said he wants to have a budget completed sooner than that, and we're working like crazy to get that done. But for the most part, April 20th is probably be around the time that the city council gets full all the documents related to the budget, and they can start deliberating on that budget soon thereafter. It first goes to the Budget and Finance Committee, and if any of you know or have been to the Budget and Finance Committee meeting, when it comes to the budget, Councilmember Parks is a machine. He'll have each and every department come up, and whether it's the meeting starts at 9 in the morning, if it takes until 10 p.m., 11 p.m., and even 12 p.m., he'll get through that budget process as long as it takes. And again, they'll be asking, just as we have, for the input and service impacts from departments. And this is another opportunity for neighborhood council members to come and speak their mind at the budget committee. And in fact, many of you did last year when there were proposals relative to cutting the neighborhood council funding. Once the budget committee does a review, they'll make recommendations on changes they want to make on the budget to the full council, and then the full council will deliberate that budget. Once they make their deliberations and complete that, they'll send it back to the mayor. Now the mayor has authority to veto or revert changes back to what he proposed on changes that the council makes. So for example, if the mayor had said, I want to include additional funding for a service here for let's just call it for streets, and the council says no, we'd rather increase services for parks, and they move that funding over, the mayor can undo that change as part of his authority. Now the council can override that with the 10 majority vote. And we hope to have this whole process done by the end of May, early June, so that we can start actually putting this budget to work. Before I end here, I just want to thank the Neighborhood Department, Neighborhood Empowerment, the CAO, and especially the neighborhood budget advocates that worked very hard on in providing input on the tool, the budget survey tool, and even afterwards on doing an analysis of the comments we received. And in fact, we have Dr. Wiseman here who's going to speak a little bit about those comments. I want to bring them up. Before I end though, I just want to remind you of our website where we do have budget information up. And again, our email at allybudget@allycity.org, where you can send your comments, suggestions, ideas throughout the budget. Thank you.
Is Miguel next, or?
I'll have Dr. Wiseman come up, and then we'll have Miguel finish.